Hi, everyone, and welcome to this very special update for the Ministry of Solas, coming to you from Scotland. I'm Angela Courte MacKenzie. I'm on the board and honored to be a board member, and also one who also has a passion for apologetics and getting the word of Jesus Christ out to folks with confidence. We're here today for a ministry report to bring you up to speed on what's been happening in the ministry and what are on the books for the next few months. I'm joined today by three of the members, very active public members of the ministry, and I want to introduce you to them, and then we're going to ask them some questions and let them share with you an update on what's happening. First of all, we have Andy Bannister, we have Gareth Black, and we have Gavin Matthews. Andy is a director of Solas, Center for Public Christianity. He's a speaker, an author, he's a broadcaster, and he has a PhD in Islamic studies and has written many books. I can recommend them all. His wife, Astrid, and two children are also a big part of his life. Andy, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Angela, and great to be on this webinar with you today.
It's great to have you. We're also joined by Gareth Black. He is a speaker with Solas. He based in Northern Ireland. He has a master's in theology from Oxford, also a master's in bioethics from King's College London, and is working on a PhD in bioethics from Oxford. Welcome, Gareth.
Thank you, Angela. Great to be here.
Great to have you. We are finally joined by Gavin Matthews. He is a writer who's been working with Solas in various capacities since the summer of 2015, initially as a freelance writer on the Solas magazine. Prior to doing work here, he has a master's degree in American history and politics and completed a theology degree while being the primary carer for his three children. He's been married to Elaine since 1996 and just celebrated his 50th birthday. So happy birthday and welcome, Gavin.
Hiya, how are you?
Great. It's great to have all of you on. Thanks for your time today. We just wanted to take a few minutes and give our friends and supporters and those who are interested and follow the ministry and the outreach of Solas an update. So Andy, let me start with you. The lockdown had seemed to kind of slow down our travel, but it really hasn't slowed down opportunities. Actually, it's created them. Tell us about some of the interesting and exciting things you've been doing.
You're dead right, Angela. I think when lockdown first happened, for Solas, as for many other ministries, we found it quite a bit frustrating. We couldn't travel, we couldn't get out on the road like we used to. And then we kind of pivoted and figured out how to begin doing more stuff online. And that's opened up incredible opportunities, because it means that myself or Gavin or Gareth or some of our Solas associates don't need to physically go to a location. We can do an event just from our homes. And although there are some limitations, some amazing things come with that. And I just had the privilege over the last year or so, been some incredible events. So last year, for example, many of the Scottish Christian unions at the universities across Scotland came together, and they united, and they put on one virtual mission week of mission, where people can invite their friends to webinars and seminars and events. And I had the privilege of being part, along with many other speakers, of that. And it was just incredible to see the number of non-Christians who had responded to invitations from their friends, who come to the event, who were taking very seriously a lot of the things we were discussing. The Q&A were fascinating, some of the questions that came through. And then similar in the kind of business world, one of my favorite events of last year, Angela, just before Christmas, I had been due to go and speak at a Ministry of Defence site down in Bristol. There was a Christian group there who were putting on lunchtime events, bringing speakers in. Well, of course, COVID lockdown prevented that, so they took it online. And what that meant was, rather than just one site, all the Christian groups across all the Ministry of Defence sites came together. And so rather than speak to maybe 40 or 50 people, I ended up speaking to several hundred on the subject of God and faith and science and those kind of questions. And again, just so encouraged to see the number of folks with no Christian faith who would come, the courage of Christians inviting them, the receptivity of people saying yes, and then just the quality of the questions where we judge it. They weren't hostile, but people really searching for answers to some of life's big questions. So it's those kind of events as an evangelist get me excited.
Yeah, I love it. And I hear you saying words like confident, quality of questions, interested hearts. I tell you, it makes the work of the ministry in Solas just so appreciated what God is doing through Solas, starting here in Scotland, but now, Gareth, through your work, it's expanding into Northern Ireland. And in what ways do you feel that this work of Solas can be a blessing in Northern Ireland?
Well, I don't know if any of our listeners have been to Northern Ireland. I'm sure some of them may even live in Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland is such an interesting context, and that's the island as a whole is a fascinating context because you have the northern part of the island, or Northern Ireland, as it's known politically, that is, I guess, outside of some regions in North America, the most evangelically densely populated part of the world, certainly Europe. And then you have other parts of the island that are some of the most unreached parts of any part of Europe entirely, certainly when it comes to sort of evangelical Christianity and things like that. So we're an island of contrasts. We're also an island of division, and I think our troubles and our division is well documented, and we're so thankful that we're moving beyond those. But I think as the rest of Western Europe and other parts of the world are increasingly globalizing, we're becoming more multicultural, we're also experiencing the rise of secularism. And so a lot of our laws and our ideas and our politics that used to cohere with biblical ethics and the biblical worldview, now that's significantly changing. And I think that's raising massive questions for the opportunities that there are to share the gospel, also how we share the gospel, but also how we train churches who, in many other ways, have always had people coming through their doors, have always had the luxury of sort of cultural Christianity and people coming through family associations, now really having to think through how do we effectively and winsomely and respectfully communicate the gospel into a world, into a society that's basically biblically illiterate and actually holds on to worldviews and ideas and ethics that are radically different from a Christian one.
Yes, and that work of dealing with a culture that's kind of been, as some have said, like fresh flowers that have been just cut, and searching for truth. I think, Gavin, that really ties into some of the work you're doing as a writer for Solas. And you were writing for the amazing Solas magazine, and now you are expanding really the written word, which for many people, they are searching online, they are searching for God. What do you find in your passion for writing and getting the message out through written word?
I just love working for Solas. It's such a privilege because Solas is a vehicle that allows us to speak about Jesus and speak about the gospel, all over the place, all kinds of ways. I mean, we have a website, and what we're doing through the web is showing some of the arguments that are for the Christian faith, and why the Christian faith makes really good sense in the light of all the big questions people have, science and suffering and sexuality and all these sorts of things. I mean, Angela, you've also written for us in our Beginner's Guide to Apologetics last year. So have Gareth and Andy as well, showing the way that there is good evidence for the Christian faith, that it's a reasonable faith, and get a chance to unfold lots and lots of those different things. Also, we have opportunities in the newspapers through things like the Scotsman. They allow us to have a regular column, and 6 times a year we get to comment on something going on in the public sphere from a Christian perspective, which is also a wonderful opportunity to share our faith with the wider world. And all of this comes around Solas's key aims, which are evangelism and evangelism training. And so that's 2 things. That's really communicating the heart of the gospel, but also encouraging and empowering Christians to do the same. And we have all these different outlets through the web and newspapers and social media. It's great, but I just think it's such a privilege to be involved with it, to be honest.
It is. It's a privilege to work for the Lord and be a part. Andy, let me come back to you. Talk to me about how during this lockdown time, Solas is still, offering opportunities to work and support local churches.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that obviously we were doing lots of, Angela, before the COVID pandemic hit, was we spent all of our time traveling the country, crisscrossing Scotland, Northern Ireland, and further afield in the UK. And we love partnering with churches. We really see ourselves as an organization that comes alongside churches. We don't sort of put ourselves there on big platforms and ask churches to come to us. We love to go where they are. And whether it's smaller churches or larger churches, find ways we help them in their evangelism and in their training. And we've done a lot of that during lockdown. So to give you a couple of examples, many of us on the team, all of us on the team, are doing lots of events right now where we respond to invitations from churches as we come and speak in online services, or we do online training events. for them. So if you're a church leader watching this and you would love, for your folks to get more equipped in how they can share their faith with their friends and neighbors, do reach out to us. Don't think, oh gosh, Solas would never want to work with me. The answer, we love working with others. And again, actually, the pandemic's made it easier because, we can now go places where before it might be untenable to drive 6 hours across the country to speak to 40 people. We're happy to do those kind of events as well as the large ones. And then also partnering with churches to do evangelism events as well, Angela. So literally just the week before we're recording this, I was down in pixelated form for a church down in Lancashire, and they'd wanted to put on an outreach event to the Muslim community. They were a part of the country where there were lots of Muslims, lots of mosques around. So I did an event speaking on Jesus and Islam and Christianity, and some of the similarities, but particularly the differences. Lots of folks in the church invited Muslim friends. We had about 100 or so, I think, something like that, watching, and quite a lot of Muslims. And the Q&A was again great because watching the questions come, and it was Muslims primarily who are asking the questions, and just a huge opportunity to share what's distinctive about Jesus and why, in my case, I'm a Christian and follow Jesus, but I'm not a Muslim and follow Muhammad. Even though I've spent 20 years studying Islam, I don't happen to believe Islam is true. And to be able to do that in a way that was respectful and engaging, partnering with that local church. And the pastor wrote this lovely email, describing how that's created now lots of opportunities that they intend to follow up on, some online. And as the lockdown begins ending, they're looking forward to taking those conversations with their Muslim friends forward. So yeah, we love doing stuff with churches, Angela.
That's great. And folks, if you want to know more about it, just contact us. Just pick up the phone and call, or you'll see a connection through the website, and call the office and we'll serve you any way we can. Gareth, if I can go back to you over in Northern Ireland, great to see you. Tell us about the work you've been doing with university students. There was a recent survey I heard that 75 to 80% of Christian young people between their freshman and senior years sometimes dissociate with Christian faith for lack of just intellectual support. So in the university, it's almost like a subculture that really has a lot of evangelism opportunities, doesn't it?
Yes, well, I think university does two things, Angela. One, it exposes teenagers, often people come as late teens, who have been sort of brought up with a kind of socially conditioned faith. It's kind of mom and dad's faith. It's kind of in youth group and things like that. And then they get into this melting pot of a university where they're exposed to ideas, different ways of life. They meet people who have radically different ethics to them, but who are still lovely and very persuasive and beautiful people. And yet at the other side, that then raises questions about the credibility of the Christian faith and how this stuff can be reconciled with maybe some of what they've heard growing up in faith. So it's a massive opportunity for people to explore what's true, what's important, how should I live? And of course, a big part of that is then Christianity and exploring the claims of Christianity, because it claims to speak into these areas. And we've been blessed as a Solas team to be able to contribute regularly and all across the UK at different universities. We were trying to calculate it before we came on air. We've spoken at least 10 different universities. I've certainly spoken at all the major ones here in Northern Ireland over the last year. Andy, similar in Scotland. And we're just blessed to be able to come and contribute to the good work that other organisations like UCCF and Christian Unions Ireland are doing on the ground every day, and trying to reach students for Christ and encourage students to reach out to their non-Christian friends in a persuasive and a confident and a meaningful way. And it's been difficult because a lot of this stuff has had to move online. I'm about to do a mission in Cork, down in the south of Ireland, in the province of Munster next week. And the idea was that would be on the ground, on campus, engaging, doing lunch bars, doing evening talks. It's all moved online, but as Andy has already alluded to, in some ways that presents new and exciting opportunities for the gospel. And in other ways, we just have to give credit to students and the organizations I've mentioned as to how they've embraced those opportunities. The gospel's still getting out amongst students, and we're blessed to be a part of it.
Yes, indeed. And I just want to encourage you all. When I was in college, I was that typical person that kind of grew up in a Christian home, but I'd never really been challenged. And I can tell you, I was asked questions. I I just actually hadn't been briefed. I hadn't been strengthened to know. And I wish I knew about a ministry like Solas, but thank God there was a few books that someone handed me, and it was the beginning of me learning about the importance of apologetics and understanding Christianity from a position that it is truth. So for me, moving to you, Gavin, I can tell you books and writing has been a big part of just my maturing and strengthening and gaining confidence in sharing my faith and in my prayer life. So as a writer, how do you see what projects you want to write about? Are you answering folks' questions, or what about the power of the pen on paper?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, there's so many good books around. One of the things we're trying to do is to highlight some of the really good ones. So if you look on our website, you'll see that there's been a whole series of conversations that we've had with authors. So John Lennox has been on, Amy Orr Ewing's been on. We've got Rebecca McLaughlin coming up as a webinar, and all those webinars or interviews are all on the website. They're all highlighted there because, there are good answers. There are well thought through answers to all the objections that people have to the faith. And, one of our friends was recently saying that in university missions, a lot of the objections have moved over the last 20 years from questions of truth. People aren't coming with the new atheist objections, primarily saying they don't believe the gospel's true. They're asking questions about, will it help me to live? Is it going to impact on my freedom? And those kind of questions. And there are profound and compelling Christian answers to both questions of utility and truth. And we need to have those answers to hand. So there are a wealth of good books and recommendations. If you were to go to our website, loads of good book reviews on there, but also loads and loads of articles. So, if you are struggling with questions of freedom or sexuality or science or suffering or the meaning and the purpose of life, have a look around the Solas website. There's a search bar on there. Have a look through. Or if you're looking for evidence and say, why do we believe what we do? Is it a kind of a punt in the dark, or are there compelling reasons for putting our faith in Christ? Again, have a look at the series I mentioned earlier on, the Beginner's Guide to Apologetics, which brings together a whole range of things from science and history and belief and morality and beauty and all kinds of different things, all brought to bear on these questions. And it's worth thinking things through. But it's also worth noting that it's worth thinking these things through prayerfully. That, the life of the spirit and the life of the mind are not two completely separate things. They always kind of work together. And it's when the Holy Spirit allows us to engage with these arguments that the truth kind of breaks like the morning sun. And you suddenly see things in a very, very different way and see the compelling truths. It's not sort of one or the other. These things always work together. But if we can help anybody with any questions that they're working through, whether the person watching is someone who's not a Christian, who's saying, well, how can there be a God with suffering? Or if you are a Christian who wants good answers to share with colleagues and friends and neighbors, we've got a wealth of material on the website. Or I have to say as well, if there's a question that you're wrestling with that we've not addressed, email it in and we will address that. We've got a range of speakers, as well as Andy and Gareth and other people, that we will address questions, because I don't think there are any really new questions under the sun. As humans, we are always wrestling with the same profound questions. And the Christian faith has had 2,000 years of thinking these things through, a huge range of wisdom to bring to bear on the great questions of life. If your question isn't sort of there, punt it in and we'll have a go. We will respond.
Yes, and I want to see the fact that the ministry is really intentionally made sure that they're addressing as many questions as they can in such a thoughtful and respectable way. I just want you, who are watching, to know that it's such a safe place to consider your questions. You can just go and in the search bar look up things, tap into some of the events. Be a part and don't let your questions just sit, but search truth. The Lord promised us that he said, you will find me when you just search for me. And it's just like a search bar. So Solas is a ministry that is reaching out through online, in person, and in print. And Andy, I want to pivot back to you and talk to you, because there's dreams God's put in your heart and they just continue and they're just wonderful. And your gifting as a writer has been such a blessing to so many people. Now you're on to a new book. Tell us about the book, the title, and what's it about?
Yeah, so one of the other sort of surprising side effects, Angela, of lockdown was not being able to go anywhere. And I love writing, and I've written several books in the past, but I'm a reluctant writer, and I can procrastinate with the best of them. In fact, one of my great literary heroes, the comedy science fiction writer Douglas Adams, once said, "I love deadlines. I love the whooshing sound they make as they go past." And that was very much my experience. But then lockdown happened, and I had no excuse. I had been contracted to do a book for the publisher IVP called "Do Muslims and Christians Worship the Same God?" And I basically, my editor said, "Great, you've got no excuse now. Get it written." So I sort of kind of did, and the whole rationale behind the book, Angelo. You know, we live in this very pluralistic, multicultural world. Many of us live surrounded by people of all faiths and no faith, but particularly of all faiths is what I'm interested in. The last book looked at atheism, which was those with no faith. This is people who belong to the world's second biggest religion, to Islam. I've been dialoguing, engaging with Muslims for 20 years or more, but I really wanted to write something popular that helps people first, I think about, you know, that some of the major differences between the world's religions, but particularly between Christianity and the world's second biggest religion. So do Muslims and Christians worship the same God? It really does exactly what it says on the tin. It takes the question of, okay, when Christians say we believe in God, when Muslims say we believe in God, they believe in God, what do we mean by the word God? And so the book is an attempt to really answer that and try to do it in a popular way, an accessible way. Those who know my writing, there's a mixture of, you know, comedy and theology. You know, lots of people have said, will it have comedy footnotes like the last book? I reassure you it does. Very readable, and something I hope too you can both give to a non-Christian friend. If you have sort of secular friends who are of the kind of all religions of the same kind of sort of background, it's a great book to help deal with that. It's also a great book to get conversation started with Muslims, and also a book to help us think through why we believe what we believe as Christians. And the good news, Angela, is it comes out on the 18th of March. But for folks who are either supporters already of Solas, if you're a Solas supporter watching this, thank you so much. So grateful for your monthly support that helps us do what we do. You'll be getting an email shortly that will tell you how you can get your hands on that book before it comes out. But if you're not a supporter of Solas, then for as little as £3 a month, and so we're supported by this army of kind of men and women across the country, around the world, who give us a little bit each month that enables us to do what we do. If you sign up as a Solas supporter, a new Solas supporter, you can get a copy of Do Muslims and Christians Worship the Same God. There's the slide, and we will send that as a gift to you when you sign up for £3 a month. You give more if you want, but £3, we're very happy with that. And I will even sign the book for you. That adds about 50p in value, they tell me, and you can get your hands on it early. And if you are overseas, by the way, it comes out, I think it's another month after the middle of March in North America. So if you're an American or a Canadian or some other kind of wonderful North American person that I've missed, you can also get take advantage of this offer, which means potentially you could be one of the first people on your continent to get your hands on that book as a thank you.
Yeah, I love the cover. It's my first chance when it just popped up to see the cover. I think that's terrific. So kudos to you for writing it, and even the whole team that's kind of just put the concept together. Do Muslims and Christians worship the same God? I had an interesting conversation with some friends in Italy who were Muslim years ago, and I remember just realizing, you know, I haven't even really taken the time. But the world is changing so quickly, and folks, listen, this is what Solas is here for. It's like a beachhead in the sea of just, where do I go to look? Listen, God's got so many great things going, but Solas is centered and focused on the role of helping the believer to be strong and confident, and challenging the unbeliever to consider Christ. So Andy, congrats on your book. You want to say one more thing?
No, I was simply going to say that I was so glad you had nice things to say about the cover. We had a brilliant graphic designer at IVP do that. But one thing that's excited me the most about the cover, actually, if our wonderful producer can bring it back up again, I'm so excited that Tom Holland has done one of the cover endorsements. If folks who don't know Tom, he is probably agnostic is the best description. Probably one of the UK's most popular historians, has written a series of wonderful, wonderful books. And it was amazing because the folks at IVP said, well, let's ask him. The worst he can say is no. And he wrote this lovely longer endorsement, of which this is a short part, saying, you know, this is a book, as he said, you know, written unapologetically from a Christian perspective, but just really brings out the differences. And Tom is, you know, someone who doesn't have a Christian faith, but who would agree that there are massive differences between Islam and Christianity. And Tom's book, Dominion, really shows how much of what we take for granted here in the West in terms of freedom and human rights and universities and hospitals and all these great things we love and appreciate in Western civilization actually have their roots back to Christianity. So he's someone who's fascinated in that question. So we're just thrilled that he was generous enough to do that. So yeah, my prayer is that the book reaches people who either are Christians, it can really equip, or it finds its way into the hands of people who are exploring and thinking about Christian faith, and it helps point them towards Christ.
Yes. And then, Lord, do what only you can do. Bring them home. So let me ask, we have just a couple minutes left. I mean, it's been so exciting today, and I encourage you again, they brought up the website. If you've got any other questions or interest in Solas and all the resources that it has, just be sure and visit the website. It's easy to navigate through. And then also consider being a partner with the ministry. I can tell you, my husband and I are monthly partners, and it's part of the joy of just giving and supporting those who God has really called to just get out there on the front line. So we love supporting a number of ministries, and Solas is one of them. So I can really heartily support asking for your prayers and for your considered financial support also. Gareth, can I ask you a question about your PhD? I mean, you have so many degrees, I'm going to have to get another card. But now you're working on a PhD at the University of Oxford. Very interesting subject, bioethics. Tell us about it.
Yes, well, bioethics is the broad arena that it falls into. It's specifically end-of-life ethics. So similar to what we've been saying about sharing the gospel and the need to be confident in our faith, I think one of my big convictions is that how we live out our faith and how we demonstrate the plausibility and the beauty of the gospel is not just simply theoretical. It's not just simply in terms of propositional evangelism, but it is actually in terms of the fabric of how we go about our daily life and make moral decisions, particularly moral decisions when they're difficult at the margins of life. So I'm going to be, I've already started, but I'm really just beginning to get my feet wet with the subject, really looking into sort of end-of-life decision-making and why end-of-life decision-making is made. There's bills going through Parliament in Ireland and some potential for bills going through Parliament in Scotland as well around the whole idea of euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide. And one of the big motives for that is that often people feel that at the end of their life they're a burden, or that they've lived such a life that demonstrates certain personality traits, strength of character, independence, all of those things, and then they get a diagnosis of, say, early onset dementia or something like that. And often the prognosis of that, the idea of what that disease will make them become, is so abhorrent to them that they decide to end their life early through a euthanized or physician-assisted suicide death in order to save this image, this idea of who they are, because they think that's what's most valuable. And I think that's a really important thing to consider, but I think the Christian worldview speaks deeply into it. And so I want to explore whether those kinds of concepts of our identity are at play in the decisions that people make, and this need that people feel to end their life early in order to not be a burden or to redeem the image of themselves that they feel is most valuable, and really speak into that through the Christian worldview and say, actually, Christianity provides us resources for, facing some of the most difficult experiences and dehumanizing experiences that we're ever going to face in this life. And yet it does so with tremendous hope and tremendous resources, and in the context of a community that in a sense allows us to be a burden, that allows us to be vulnerable, to be dependent, because we have hope and we have resources in order to do that, to say that our value doesn't simply exist in how independent or how strong or how able-bodied we can be, but actually our value exists outside of ourselves and our self-created identity in a God who knows us and loves us and has created us in his image, regardless of what our particular condition or health is at any point. So those are some of the thoughts that I'll be exploring. It's going to take me a while. Hopefully there will be some sort of book come out of it. It may be an expensive academic book at this stage, but I really think that exploring it and thinking as well about how this becomes a practical ethic that the church can truly live out speaks both to the realm of ethics, but broader in terms of demonstrating to the world the beauty of the Christian gospel and that it works at our most vulnerable moments of life. And in that sense, it's evangelism as well.
Yes. Yeah, what you've been hearing, folks, today is an update from Andy Bannister, Gareth Black, and Gavin Matthews. And as we close our special program today, I'm going to ask everyone to come back on the screen and just give us some final comments, and then we'll say goodbye for today. But it's been fascinating to check in with all of you. Thank you all for joining us. Gavin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, 3 things I want to mention really quickly. 2 series coming up on our website in the coming year. One is called Mind the Gap. That is addressed to Christians, and it addresses, I think it's about 12 of the issues that hold us back from sharing our faith. Things like feeling guilty, processing private doubts, lack of information, loads of stuff on that coming up over the coming year. They're published about once every fortnight with a whole range of writers. And that's about helping us to overcome the difficulties we have sharing our faith. The second series, which hasn't launched yet, is a series of interviews with people in different jobs, different roles, who are sharing their faith at work. And I've got a farmer, a dentist, a doctor, a builder, all of these people, lots of interviews about people who are positively sharing their faith, little stories that are inspiring about how you can actually share your faith. So watch out for that too. And the third thing is, please sign up for our prayer letter, which comes out once a month. It's called Insight. And what I do is every month I send out a bulletin which shows when people like Andy and Gareth are going to be speaking, which means that if, Gareth's speaking in the university in Cork, or Andy's in Glasgow or St Andrews or wherever, it means people are praying so that their words are anointed with the Holy Spirit, that they come with grace and wisdom and truth and clarity, that they're kind of on their toes for the Q&As, because we can be busy in our own strength, but we can't be fruitful without prayer and without the Holy Spirit moving. So please sign up to get that prayer letter and join us in prayer, because that's just the difference between busyness and fruitfulness is your prayers. So please, will you consider signing up and being one of our prayer supporters during the coming year? Thanks.
Excellent. Gareth, final thoughts?
2 things from me, Angela. Just one is just to say thank you to all of our supporters and those who faithfully log in and support our webinars, who support us prayerfully and indeed financially. As I said, my heart specifically with Solas is for Ireland, and we're undergoing significant spiritual climate change. And before joining the team back in May 2020, I was very much trying to find ways to meet these needs and help churches and things like that solo. So it's just beautiful to now have the opportunity to be part of a team of experienced and passionate people who we can join our efforts together and make differences across the UK, and of course with all this online stuff across the world as well. So thank you so much, because it's your generosity, it's your faithfulness that's allowing that to be possible, and it is making a difference in Ireland and beyond that. And I then just echo Gavin's invitation to pray. If you want something specific from me, I'm doing this big student mission in Cork. It's the first opportunity that Solas has had in the Republic of Ireland, and the needs on the ground in communities in the Republic of Ireland are huge, particularly at student level. So please just support us and pray for us, and we'll do everything that we can in our power and trust in God's power that we see students come to Christ over these next couple of weeks.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless Ireland. And God bless Scotland. All right, Andy, our director, any final thoughts before we close for today?
Yeah, well, my esteemed colleagues have covered much of it. I mean, I'm glad they both emphasized prayer. We can't say that enough, really. We're just so conscious that when people pray, there's a difference. That we can't do what we do without the Lord kind of breathing life into the dry bones of our work. So really appreciate your prayers. Also, really appreciate your for all of you watching, who are all probably part of different churches and so forth. Just also be making sure that in your own setting, evangelism is happening. One of the things that's easy to do in lockdown is just turn inward and think about our churches, our online services, keeping the wheels going. But so much of the point of the church is about reaching out. And so really just encourage you to do that. use all the resources that Solas creates to help you do that. We've talked about the website. Do go to the website, look at the short answers videos, the articles, the other pieces. Use anything you like. You never have to ask our permission. People often email me saying, hey, could I borrow that video? We use it as part of an outreach. You don't have to ask us. It's all there to be used as a resource. So please use that. And if there are things that we could be doing for you, for your church, or for you personally as you struggle to be a faithful witness at work or university, wherever, again, please reach out. If there's a resource that you need us to put together, if there's a short answer that would address a question that your friends are asking you, contact us through the website and say, hey, it would really help me if X, and then do X. And then last thing, just a real favor to ask, tell people about the work of Solas. Would be just a real favor that you could do, as we've talked about supporting us, but also just help us spread the word of what we're doing, because our prayer and our vision is just to get resources that we're doing, and the resources of others, by the way, because one of the things that we're committed to at Solas is not just being, Andy and Gavin and Gareth and in time other speakers. We love, if you go to the website, you'll see so many other men and women there who are gifted communicators, whose work we love showcasing and platforming. And it's my prayer that would get into the hands of as many people as possible. And that little power of the share button, or if you're not on social media, and you see something that is helpful to you, email it to a friend. That would be tremendously helpful too. And we're grateful for your prayers, and we're hugely grateful to all of those who support us and make this work possible. So thank you for standing with us.
Well, thank you, Andy, Gareth, and Gavin, for joining. And thank you, friends, for your time to watch this today. Again, if we can serve you in any way, please contact us. You can call, you can contact us through the website, email, and just keep us in your prayers, and pray the Lord of the harvest will have these efforts to be fruitful. It's about conversation, it's about commitment and confidence, but it's really about Christ. So we pray the Lord bless you today and continue to bless the work of Solas. Until next time, God bless.